Hi, so what I have to show you here is a Anthos demo here. So what we did was we have a application that we created called FaceOpen that is deployed into two clusters. One is a Anthos cluster that's running in our data center, and the other is in GCP in a cluster that's actually running inside the cloud. So here you can see that we have the two clusters actually running, and if you actually click into one, inside the Anthos cluster, you can actually see a lot of the services and workloads that are actually running inside the data center. So this is neat as it gives you a look from the GCP console into what is actually running inside the data center. And this gives you essentially a single pane of glass view of all the systems that are running both in the data center and in the cloud. So what I'm going to show you is the application itself and how it works. This is a registration process for a facial recognition software. And what we did was we purposely throttled the throughput speed from the data center to mimic a slow data center. The idea here is that we want to be able to deploy the application to the data center, build cloud native applications and deploy them into our own data center, if for whatever reason the company is not ready to move to the cloud. And this could be potentially a great use case for banks or some other regulatory commissions, a public sector, where the company is not necessarily ready to go to the cloud yet, but they're very interested in building cloud native apps. You could run into this problem where you have an extremely slow data center. And what I'm going to showcase here is really how easy it is to switch your application from being running inside of your data center to running inside the cloud. So as you can see, we just logged in here and we're now able to go in and add the user, and you can see how slow it is already. So now what we're going to do is we have this internal faceopen.techolution.lab DNS entry that is mapped to the data center. And we do a ping on that. You can see that it's actually resolving from a private IP address, the 192.168 address, which is to show that we are actually, serving the traffic up from the internal data center. And you can't see it here, but we are actually VPN'd into the Anthos environment, which is why they're able to actually access that IP. So we're going to SSH into that Anthos server. And now we're going to do a sudo, give us the right permissions here. And then I just want to show you really quickly what the actual DNS script looks like. We're going to execute it, and we're going to pass in the cloud. So this is actually going to switch the DNS from pointing to the local Anthos application and switch it over to the cloud. And in a real environment, you would probably use some sort of load balancer or some real system to actually do this. But this is a lab environment. We just wanted to make sure that we could actually go in and do this. So now when we ping the FaceOpen domain, you'll see that it now points to the Google paste one. So now we're resolving against the public IP, and then now when we go back to the site and we hit the same URL, you can see quite the difference in speed. I mean, it's already loading now before where it was actually spinning and taking a little bit more time. Um, and as we log in, you can see that the response time is much, much quicker. And we will go through the registration process again. This time I'm going to add a user. And one of the cool things that this software does, and the purpose of this software, is it grants users the ability to gain access to locked doors. So this is actually connected to a door module, and you can see on the right there what it looks like as people walk up to the door. It will recognize your face using machine learning and AI to actually determine if you have access. So the process right now is we are actually granting a user access to the door. So this process, he's gonna scan your face from the front, from the left, and then from the right, and then it uses that to gain access to the system. So now when this user walks up to the door after they're registered, the door will actually open and let them into the system. So we're just going to complete the registration process here. And I kind of mentioned earlier, and the reason why this is super important to have a Anthos component is we want to have a situation where we not necessarily want the user's data, their PID, their facial data, to be outside of the data center. So this is why we thought this was a perfect use case uh, for FaceOpen and for Anthos. So he's going now, and we're actually approving that the user does have access. You can see the profile pictures that were added. Great. So now I want to show you one more thing too. So I want to show you how easy it is to deploy with Anthos. So here we have the config repository and the cluster one, which is the cluster that we are deploying to inside the data center. And then inside the namespaces folder, we have the default namespace, which is the base namespace we are doing. So here are all the current configuration options for Anthos and all the services that we're actually running right now. You can see that there are a couple services already existing. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to create a new service and show the deployment, how easy it is to deploy to Anthos. So we start by doing a get pause to show all the existing ones, just to prove that the one that we're actually creating isn't in there. We have a test deployment YAML file and a service file with the new services that we're actually planning on deploying. So we do a git status. You can see the ones that were added. We're going to actually add them to the repository, commit them to the repository. And the Anthos config is actually monitoring this configuration repository, looking for files that go inside this namespace. So once they are actually detected that new files are there and new configurations are there, the Anthos will kick in, will actually start publishing and deploying those new services. So as we do a git push and actually commit those and move those into the Git repository, you can see now that as we go and well, first we'll look at the the new, make sure the new file's there, and it is actually going to the 1.0 branch. And then as we do a git pods to showcase that the new one is there, and you can see there it is not yet there started, so it will be a second. Okay, it does take a couple seconds for it to register and for the detection to actually happen. You can see here. So now we have the new service running. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to us. We'd love to show you some more stuff.